Hi, welcome to One Eye on the Page. I am Scott. This is the vlog for the week of 9 through 15 October. I finished 7 books, so let's go ahead and get into it. I will say that I have 3 books that I would pretty much consider fluff books in here. I tend to read fluff when I'm also reading something pretty heavy, and I was reading Crime and Punishment, which I will get into later, which is pretty heavy. So I also read some really, light reading. So the first book that I finished was Meeting Millie by Claire Ashton. It is a sapphic romance set in Oxford, in England. Sort of two timelines, two women at college, and then like about a dozen years later, they were very close in college. One of them is lesbian, one of them is straight. For some reason, they haven't talked to each other in a long time, and they meet each other at Oxford years later. So it's very light, but it was a very fast read, which is why I ended up needing to read other light reading books. It was very fun. It's probably the best of the light reading books that I read this week, and both the main characters were really enjoyable. I really liked them. They were able to still have conflicts while still being enjoyable, and had me rooting for them. I will say the only thing that I didn't like about this, and I don't like it when it happens in books, and it happens in books very often, or movies, or TV shows, or whatever, is when you have a jackass of a parent, in this case, one of the woman's moms, who's pretty much a jackass throughout the entire book, and then at the end of the book, there's some type of closure between the mother and child, yet the mother hasn't done anything to deserve it. She was still a jackass. So, um, yeah, I don't enjoy that. That really grates my nerves quite a bit. But she wasn't in the novel a lot. So, it's not really even enough for me to knock it down any bit because of it. Um, it was just a fun read. So I'm going to give this one a 4 star. Book number 2 that I finished, and this was a book club book that my family does a book club. Every 1 to 2 months, we go over a book that one of us has picked. Pick The Orphan Keeper by Cameron. Yeah, Cameron Wright. Um, this was an awful book. This book has 4.33 on Goodreads. It has 4.1 something, I think, on Storygraph. People love this book. I just don't happen to be one of those. You may love this book. If you do love it, fine, good for you. I think it's the drizzling shits. A young man is taken in India, kidnapped, taken to an orphanage where he is basically sold to new parents in America. This is based on a true story. The novelist made it fiction because he's a fiction writer, and also he didn't want to waste any time doing extensive research. This is not something I'm guessing. This is something that he has said on the fact of his website. The novelist is pretty glaringly white, like white. And of course, the young boy, the later grown man, is Indian. There's a lot of talk about India and a lot of stuff that people know, and it's It's just the way that the writer does it. And there was basically the writer pushing that this was good for him, that he wouldn't have been able to do all the things that he did if he had stayed in India. Never mind that his brother made some pretty decent accomplishments on his own, not as lofty as Taj's. His name is Taj. His name later is Taj. His name was originally Chelamuthu, and his parents, American parents, changed it because he would get teased. They changed his name. He lost his language, and he lost his culture. And from what I've seen in the novel and from what little research I've done of the real person, they made no effort to keep any of this. Um, but Taj is, basically this was good for him. The thing that I find interesting is that the writer pushes this, but Chelamuthu's mother was in India for 16 years, plus other members of his family and his father, who might or might not have sold him. Basically, like, my son is gone. I do not know what has happened to him at all. And that barely seems to matter to the author. This is basically told in stages. The first part is his time in India when he was like 7 or 8, until he is goes to America, spends a little bit of time there, and then we do a 10-year jump until when he's in high school. By the way, he's a student body president, which fine, he actually was, but Taj in the novel is a huge dick, and there's no explanation why this huge jackass would be a student body president who everybody loves, and he treats everybody like shit. Just bad writing. Just the author doesn't know what the word ironic means. And he said somebody was adorable as a kindergarten costume party. Don't even know what the fuck that's supposed to mean, but it he's a bad writer. It's just there's a lot I feel, and I will say during book club, I think that I think there was 9 of us. One of us didn't read the book at all. She wasn't able to. Another one of us read part of the book and then stopped because they hated it so long. That was not me. If you watch my videos, you might know who that person might be. And the another person, me, hated it. Everybody else liked it. But there's a lot of white savior issues in here. I don't know if it will matter to you or not, because they do talk about God a little bit in here and basically how, like, God's plan and all. But what they don't mention in the novel is that Taj and Taj's American parents are members of the Church of Latter-day Saints. He goes to London at one time. In the book, it said that he's going for college year abroad. He's actually doing a mission. There's a possibility that the orphanage that was in India may have been Mormon linked. Don't know if that's the case or not. So that's something that's a possibility, but was it actually? No. Was it actually? No, I don't know. Um, I just thought it was. I mean, it was the drizzling shits. I mean, I don't really know what else to tell you. It wasn't a good book. If I had not had to read it for book club, yeah, I probably would have also stopped reading it. It was that bad. It is a 1 star. Book number 3 is called Broken Beyond Repair by Emily Banting. It was another one of the Fluff books that I read. It is about a Hollywood actress who breaks her leg, so she needs to get a caretaker. The caretaker is this free spirit who rides around in a camper throughout England, who does like short-term caretaking jobs as part of her agency. And it's a grumpy person, sunshine person type of thing. Romance happens. It was fine. Actually, I would say it was pretty good. It just didn't know when to end. The ending just dragged and dragged. Uh, the rating should be up a little bit higher, but I dropped it because of that ending. It was fine. It was a good alternative to me reading Crime and Punishment, but I know there's like a sort of sequel to it. It's one of those sequels where the characters in this one show up, but they're not the main characters in the second book. And I don't have any plans to read it. I'm gonna give that one a 3 star. And then I did finish Crime and Punishment by Dostoevsky. It's a long book. It's at least the book I had was around 600 pages. This is one I talk about sometimes, like characters you like. I often say I didn't like any of the characters. I didn't like any. Well, I didn't like most of the characters in this book, but I was still intrigued by the characters. So I think you can write unlikable characters that are still intriguing. That was the case here. I will say Raskolnikov, the main character, the murderer, is annoying, is irritating. Kind of just want to shake him a little bit, like a little bit, like years maybe. Um, but it does let us see into his head, even though his head is just all over the place. I will say that I kind of enjoyed it more for some of the side characters. I enjoyed, quite honestly, a lot of the women in the novel. Uh, I know last week I said Sophie, uh, but it's Sonia, uh, or her name is also Sophia. Sophia. Uh, that's an thing. I listened to this on audiobook and like characters have like a lot of different names, and I will say there are times where I'm kind of like, okay, he's talking to who? Okay, but I like Sonia and uh, Raskolnikov's sister, and I even enjoyed Sonia's stepmother and the German landlady. Not likable people, but entertaining. I will say I don't remember who narrated this. I know my daughter listened to one that was narrated by Will Poulter. I did not. I got the free one on my Audible Plus. I think it was Stephen Austin. I may be wrong, but he made an interesting choice for one of the Petroviches, the police Petrovich, where his giggle is just that was a choice. I will not try to duplicate it because it's just weird. But yeah, this was a very heavy novel. I will say one thing that I was intrigued by is that throughout a lot of the novel, if you don't know it, Raskolnikov feels a lot of pressure. He's poor. He's relying on his mother for money. His landlady wants him to pay rent that's been due for a while. And he decides to murder basically, I would guess, a moneylender, a pawnbroker kind of thing, a woman. And he does so, but after he has killed her sister comes in. Her sister is not all there, I would guess I would say. And he also kills her. And throughout a lot of the novel, they talk about the moneylender being murdered, but I would say probably 9 out of 10 times they don't mention the sister because she's not seen. I feel like she's not seen on that level that she deserves to be counted as one of the murdered. There's quite a few instances in the novel where lower class people, their struggles are amusing to other people. They get struck. They have fights encouraged between them because it's amusing to other people. Uh, Sonia is a prostitute who is looked down upon many people because she is a prostitute, and she's probably the most moral character in the book. You can argue there may be other ones that you might think are more moral. For me, it's Sonia. Um, but it was a very good novel. Very minor quibbles with it, but I'm going to go ahead and rank this as 4.5. It's obviously a classic. It's just I don't feel like I connected it well enough for it to be a 5 star, but it's still an amazing book. But then I read P.G. Woodhouse's Frozen Assets. Yeah, with the Woodhouse book. I'm reading it for my podcast with Robin. This is the one that we will be doing at the beginning of next month, and that'll be showing up at the beginning of December. Frozen Assets. It's about a Biff young man whose godfather leaves him quite a lot of money in his will with the provision that he cannot get arrested before his 30th birthday, which is a week away. If he does so, he loses all the money. That Biff has a problem with punching policemen. A situation that's quite prevalent in Wodehouse novels, much more frowned on now. uh, Biff has his friend Jerry, who is a newspaper man who basically looks out for him. Biff has his sister Kay, who is engaged to Henry, who's a British diplomat. Jerry falls in love with Kay. There is Lord Tilbury, the owner of a publishing house, who also happens to be the brother of Biff's godfather. He wants to contest the will because he's not getting any money in it. He has a secretary that's working for him that he has the hots for. She is the cousin of Percy Pilbeam, who runs a detective agency, also used to work for Tilbury as an editor. There's probably the funniest opening to a Woodhouse novel that I know at the beginning when Jerry is at a Parisian police office reporting a stolen wallet and just getting bogged down in red tape. There is also Mr. Bunting, who is Tilbury's solicitor, who is my favorite character in the novel, and he doesn't appear until like 3/4 of the way through it. He just, and I think with the way the novel ends, I think Woodhouse fell in love with him too. Just takes over the novel to me, uh, but does it from the sidelines. Perfect character. Uh, Also, Biff and Jerry are friends. They're like actual friends, not Woodhouse friends, where like with Bertie Wooster, his friends treat him like crap. Uh, there's some like teasing between Biff and Jerry, but they really like each other. They treat each other fairly nicely. They look out for each other. That's often a rarity in Woodhouse novels. This is a 5 star for me. I think I have This is my fifth 5-star, and two of them are Wodehouse novels. So yeah, it's good. And the more that I just have to rattle off, you know, the connections between everything in characters and novels, the better the book is going to be, which is not always the case. So we had Frozen Assets, a 5-star. Now we have A Daughter's a Daughter by Agatha Christie, writing as Mary Westmacott. It's the fifth Mary Westmacott novel. Uh, Last week I read The Rose and the Yew Tree, which was the fourth, which I said at the time was the best Westmacott novel I read. This is the worst. Anne is a woman in her 40s, has a daughter Sarah, early 20s. They live together. Sarah goes off for 3 weeks. Anne meets Richard, a widower, and they fall for each other. They become engaged. Sarah comes back, doesn't get along with Richard, basically works her way to get them broken up. And the rest of the novel is consequences of that. There's not, and remember what I said about Crime and Punishment, there is not one likable character in here. Not one. And they're not interesting. It's the same old shitty characters that Agatha Christie has in a lot of her novels. The unemotional, distant daughter, the overbearing mother, the friend who won't give advice but then will tell you afterwards everything you did wrong, the clingy maid, the uh, unlucky lover, the husband who's a cad. The oh god, it's just awful. Yeah, I think Mary Westmacott books are what would happen if Agatha Christie was not interested in mysteries. We would have had all these books, and it would just been this dribble. It's just very bad. It's bad. Uh, I'm giving it a 1-star. It's still just a touch better than the Orphan Keeper. They're both 1-stars, but I will say just a little hair above the Orphan Keeper. And the last book I read was another, I had started it when I was still in Crime and Punishment, another Fluff book. It's called Not Just Gal Pals by Elizabeth Luly. Uh, Two women who were at basically grew up in the same town together. They didn't like each other because they thought the other person didn't like them, but they were both attracted to each other. And it's basically their relationship blooming and all the obstacles in the way. I liked the characters well enough. It was very Hallmark. There were like situations that were in Hallmark movies that were just lifted and put into this book. I had fun reading it, but do I have any urge to read any of the other author's other books? No. Am I ever going to read this book again? No. Will I remember this book 2 or 3 months down the road? Will I remember this book 2 or 3 months down the road? No. Will I remember it a month down the road? Uh, if I'm not looking at my database of books I read, no, probably not. It's inoffensive. It's fine. It's okay. It was good while I was reading it. It was a bag of chips. It's like, oh shit, I finished the bag of chips. Now I want real food. 3-star. Yeah, it was fine. I have a bunch of other new books that I'm starting on. I'm not going to get into because I got a lot into that last week. I, but I have books that I'm starting on, books that I'm continuing to read. I am continuing with all the Halloween related books that I am reading for the month of October. I have read one of them so far, and there's six, but I was reading We Always Lived in the Castle. In now, since I'm done with Crime and Punishment, I went and I just got that as an audiobook, so I will definitely finish that book this week. And by the end of the month, I should finish all six. So that is it for this week. Please like and subscribe. Please leave a comment. Uh, how are you feeling about any of these books? Have you read Crime and Punishment? What do you think? Have you read The Orphan Keeper? Are you one of the people that likes it? Most people do. Not me. Got another 5 star. Didn't have any 5 stars at all the first 6 months of the year, I believe. Now I have 5. I guess either I'm finding good books or my requirements are lowering. All right, that's it for this week. I will talk to you next time.